Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of The Whole Perspective. My name is Kevin DeLory, Chief Lending Officer at EPM. As always, joined by my good friend and Senior Vice President of Lending, Kenny Phillips. And we have a great guest on today, Jake Thompson. I'm going to let Kenny do the introduction, and then I can't wait. I got a lot of great questions and a lot of great conversation I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great episode. Today we have Jake Thompson. Jake coaches individuals on how to be, he competes at tongue-tied today. Wow.
Whoa. I coach too, so you're good. You're
on
the right path.
I'm tongue-tied this morning. Jake coaches and teaches individuals how to compete every day to reach their full potential in their career and life. It's through Jake's own experience as an athlete, entrepreneur, and motivational speaker that he's learned how we can move closer to their career, health, and life. It's small shifts in our focus and daily actions that build our winning mindset and winning life, according to Jake. And today he's going to tell us why. I apologize for the intro, Jake. Got a little tongue-tied this morning.
I might be looking for a new
co-host. Don't even sweat. Jesus. It's Friday, maybe we just need a cup of coffee. Maybe we'll do this a little bit later at happy hour. Don't even sweat it. You hit the high points. Pretty much coach help people how they can compete every day. And I'm sure we're going to dive into what that looks like. But Kevin, Kenny, super excited to be with you.
Awesome. Last night I watched a lot of your videos and I was very excited. And, one topic, first of all, these shirts are, they are the most popular shirts in the mortgage industry. And I just want to show what it says. It's talk is cheap and it's let your hustle be louder than your mouth. So when I wear these in public, I either get people to say, this guy has a lot of confidence or he may be even cocky. So I was up last night thinking about the two of those things, and it was driving me crazy because sometimes people say, if you're confident, it's okay to be cocky. I don't agree. So I want to ask you something. I look at confidence like a, 2002 Chateau Latif Rothschild, right? So confidence is something to be enjoyed, and you sip on it and you listen to other people and you take things in, and it's okay to be quiet, enjoy the moment, and learn something from the other person. And when I think of and I'm like, well, what would cockiness be? And it would be like a bottle of Jose Cuervo with a shot glass where you just whack it down and you just get all loud and you do all the talking and nobody else gets to say a word. Even though you may be confident, I think when people say those two words, confident, when I listen to you, I can see you're very confident, but you're not cocky. And I find it funny that people would think that sometimes the shirt is being conceived as cockiness. And I've watched some great people, and I'm not just saying this because I know them, like Jay Duran, Eddie Perez. They are very confident in their ability, but they do it by listening, talking slowly, hearing the other person out, and then giving them the answer. And then I see people that are extremely cocky, and I see them just say, I don't need to know what Jake's opinion is because I know everything because I'm so good at what I do and I can't learn from people. And I think confident people are always willing to learn. So last night when I was watching your videos, I took so many notes and I'm like, how did I not discover Jake sooner? There's so many great things that hopefully you're going to share today, especially in our industry on what, we're going through these challenges, and everything that I listen to you is, hey, look, let's not forget the basics. But I really want to ask you, what is your opinion on the difference between confidence and cockiness?
Yeah. So ego is really the difference from a standpoint of confidence is earned because you've done the reps and you believe in your ability to continue growing and improving. When you remove ego from the main thing and all you focus on is how am I getting better? I'm really good at this. How can I keep improving? You walk into those rooms, you're curious, you listen, you ask questions. You make sure you're not in rooms all the time where you're the most successful or smartest individual because you don't care necessarily about getting the attention. You care about improving. Cockiness is all about ego. You want everybody to know how great you are. And so you project that. It's not about getting better. It's about getting attention. And so that's where I see the biggest contrast between the two is somebody that's cocky is led by their ego because they want you to know I'm better than you. Confidence is earned. And the people that have that quiet confidence, they care about how am I helping others and how am I getting better. I don't need the applause. I don't need the attention. Proof's in the pudding. Proof's in the work that I've done. I'm just going to keep growing. Ego is like, look at the work I've done because I want you to know how great I am.
Yeah, and that's a tough one to overcome. I mean, when I was younger in my career, I knew I was very outspoken. And since I've been here with Eddie over the last, year, I've watched it myself evolve. Between your point, we all have a sign on our door that says, hang up your ego here, right? You're not allowed to. We start our meetings off every week with hanging up our ego. And it's something that when you to your point, when you're listening and you're confident, I just think you could teach so many people how to get to that next level without that abrasiveness of cockiness. I just watched a conversation a couple of weeks ago when I was in Vegas, and I sat back and I just listened to the conversation and took it in. And I was so confident that I could have added something to that conversation, but I felt so confident to be in that room that I just wanted to listen to the other two people and learn something. And if I could take one nugget away from that conversation, I'm stronger than I was when I sat down at that table. So it's okay just to be quiet sometimes. And I thought about this all night. So I'm glad you actually agreed with me, because I was like, am I looking at this the wrong way? But when
you're right on.
Too much confidence.
You're right on. And even, I think about it from a speaker standpoint, because that's a lot of the work I do is keynote talks on stages, workshops. And you can tell when someone takes the stage, if they're all about themselves or if they're all about how I'm here to serve. And that was one of the most important things I learned years ago from one of the coaches I worked with was, when you go on stage, your job is to be in service of the audience. It's not about you. And he said, you very much can see the people over extended careers who cares about themselves and who cares about making an impact. And that goes back to that ego-driven, or am I chasing excellence? And I saw Olivia's comments on what are your thoughts on wanting to be validated, recognized for contributions and how that relates to ego. I think we all want that. We all have a craving to get recognized for the hard work that we do. We want that recognition of knowing that more than anything, I think it's a human just craving to want to know that you made an impact, that when you leave a job, when you leave a career, when you leave a life, that your legacy in some form or another says, I was here. That's us. That's what we want. And so there's a natural calling for that of wanting to get recognized. Where we get into trouble is when we become so obsessed with getting that recognition instead of doing the work to gain it.
Right.
And a lot of people are just focused on blast me on social media. Let's do this. Pay attention to me. Look at me. That really, as the shirt says, the work speaks loudest for us. No. And if you're someone who's consistently putting up good work, that's not going to be ignored. Steve Martin says it best. He says, be so good they can't ignore you. And that's really what it's about, is make your work so good that it speaks for you, that you don't have to ask for recognition. You don't have to look for it. It's going to happen because of the results you've created. And that's just embracing that mentality of being confident and chasing excellence versus being cocky and chasing your ego.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Kenny, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's something that sticks out to me early in my career, and I live by it now. I'm confident enough that if Kenny gives me the best idea in the world and I'm in a room without Kenny, that when I present that idea, I'm going to make sure that I explain to everyone that idea came from Kenny, because as a young guy coming up in this industry, I had this idea, and I remember it was like it was yesterday. I was sitting in a room and someone raised their hand and said, I have a great idea. And the night before we were out having dinner and I gave them this idea, and I'm looking around, wait a second, that's my idea. I can't raise my hand now and say it's my idea. So as a leader, I would tell anyone that anytime someone shares that idea, to your point, everyone craves that recognition. It only takes, 6 words to say, it wasn't me, it was them, right? Or whatever the amount of words it is. I think that shows to the people that you lead that you truly care about them, and you're confident enough to show them that, that you don't know everything. I surround myself with a mastermind, Kenny being one of them. I don't know everything, but I give the right people around me that I could share their, ideas. And I always make sure that I go out of my way to validate them and make sure that everyone knows that their idea was great and give them that recognition. And as a leader, it pays back itself, tenfold from their loyalty to the organization.
Not only that, just the organization as a whole. You look at how many companies today struggle with creating healthy cultures. And it starts at the top. And so the example that leaders set of being willing to say, hey, this was so-and-so's idea. Hey, I loved your contribution. Hey, I know we didn't run with that, but I loved how you brought it to the table. Those spaces where somebody feels safe enough to volunteer an idea because they know somebody's not going to just steal it and pass it off as their own. That's what makes healthy organizations. That's what make them thrive. It's the toxic ones where nobody's sharing because they know somebody else is going to steal it. And so they're only focused on protecting myself. In any team setting, when everybody's only looking out for themselves, the team fails.
Absolutely. Interesting. I watched a couple of your videos, Jake, and one of them said, we go to a lot of trade shows and functions, and we see a lot of keynotes and motivational speakers. And one of the things that hit home, as you said, was, when people leave there, they're all pumped up when they leave. Then a day or two after that, they die down. They lose the motivation. And you say, your mantra is, compete every day.
Yep.
Talk about that and the mission behind it, and kind of tie it into that theory that when people leave, that motivational speaker kind of dies down.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually talked to some of the EPMX crew at 2021 when we did their event. And one of the things we went through is a scorecard that I use from a habit building standpoint in a lot of my programs, because for that exact reason, I've been that person in the conference, hyped up, walked out 2 days later. I have no idea how to use any of that.
Right.
Like, not even like, I don't even remember the key takeaway, but I remember leaving jazzed up, but not how am I going to put one thing into practice? And so I'm so intentional now, whether it's changing how you talk from I have to I get to, or I can't into I don't, something that when you leave, there's at least one piece, because for an organization, a conference, you've made an investment in me to invest in your people. And if all they're doing is hyped up, you might as well just play a bunch of YouTube videos and get them jazzed and then head into work. What you want them to do is take something away that they can apply. And so really this idea of competing every day grew out of a failure on my end. Honestly, that was really it. What happened was when I was 19, I had a chance. I'd gone to college to play football. I'd had an academic and athletic scholarship. I'd gotten hurt the summer before I got there. And so starting my first semester, I was just a student. Go out spring semester, kind of a couple weeks in, I'm having to do everything by myself. I'm having to lift by myself. I was quarterback, so didn't have anybody to throw with. And we all remember what it's like being a freshman in the varsity locker room. We all remember what it's like walking through high school or college and just not feeling like you belong. And it was that feeling for me times 20. And I remember being just physically sick all week about how lonely it was. And more than anything, the haunting voice of what if you fail? What if you're not good at the one thing you think you're good at or you love? Who do you become? And I grew up in this small town in Texas where football was life, and I was a quarterback, and I was good, and I loved the game. Right. And I was scared to death of failing at that one thing I loved. And I remember one Friday afternoon finishing a workout by myself, going into the locker room and seeing my reflection in the mirror and having this pit in my stomach that hadn't left all week. And being so immature at 19, I kept hearing everybody's thoughts of listen to your gut, your gut's always right. And I remember hating the reflection of myself in the mirror because of how scared I was. And I remember that feeling of just hating the feeling and hating myself. And that day I ended up turning in my stuff, walking out and giving up. I was too afraid of failing to compete for what I wanted. That decision haunted me worse than any relationship, any other thing I did in my life for years. And flash forward to my late 20s, I'm looking at friends and I'm seeing them do the same thing. And it broke my heart. I saw them settle for jobs that sucked, bosses that were toxic to them, relationships that were going nowhere because they were too afraid to clean up a LinkedIn profile, too afraid to go on a new date or to start over. And it crushed me. And I remembered how heavy that burden had been on me for years. And I thought, how can I help people change their mindsets? Just encourage them more than anything to be courageous. I think that's why I've embraced my title as Chief Encouragement Officer at Compete Every Day, because encouragement is just inspiring courage. And courage, more than anything, is being willing to take one step forward when you're afraid. And I started toying with these ideas of how does someone change their life? How do they become more courageous? And really, it came down to this idea of the way you do it is stop getting your focus on what's scaring you on everything else and look in the mirror and say, what am I going to do to get better today? What am I going to do to take a step forward today? What am I going to do to expand my comfort zone today? And out of that really became this message of competing every day. What would it look like to get your eyes off everybody else? Because you don't control everybody else. You don't control those other companies. You don't control that coworker. You don't control anything but the person you see in the mirror and your attitude, your actions, your effort, and how you show up every day. And what are the things that you can do to start growing that? And I had the idea, and the more I talked to people about the idea, the more I would just see the light. Well, I hadn't thought about that. Or I'm always comparing myself to someone else. Or I'm too afraid to take this step. But if I stop focusing on all of the things I have to do and just say, well, what's one step I could take today? Well, then life starts to change. And so I started printing that message on a bunch of t-shirts and tank tops, selling them out of the trunk of my car behind a CrossFit gym in Dallas as a side hustle in 2011. And didn't know any better, didn't have a clue what I was doing, just trying to say, how do I get this message out? And in 2015, I got an opportunity to speak. I'd been speaking at local business chamber events, schools, and a hospital in Houston reached out and said, come speak at our HR week. We want to buy 150 shirts for the staff. Big deal for me at the time. I was like, cool. What do you want me to talk about? And the VP was like, just tell your story. So I got up, I talked about my story. I talked about lessons I'd learned early in my career. And afterwards, she pulled me aside and said, if you haven't thought about this, you need to go do more of it. I think there's something here you haven't thought about. Dismissed it. About a year later, I started thinking, I like t-shirts, but there's got to be a better way to help people change their mindset. And so I started looking into what it looked like to really speak and teach. And I come from a family of teachers, my mom, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle. So teaching and educating people was kind of in my world. And so in 2016, I started making big bets on myself, investing pretty heavily in coaches and training, and said, I think this may be a path where I can make a better impact than just a shirt. And so that's really where everything shifted, and the version of compete every day that you see now started to come out of.
Well, your message is perfect for what's going on in our industry right now. Our industry, I love the thing, control the controllables, right?
Yep.
And it's every day I get up and I can't control what the rates are going to do. I don't control what housing prices are going to do, but there's one thing I can control, and that's my attitude, the activity I put into every day. And if I put enough activity in, I will find success. But I think a lot of people get into that doom and gloom. Oh my God, the rates are going up again. Oh, what do I do? The same thing you did the day before, but maybe a few more, repetitions of it. So instead of making 20 calls, you make 40 calls. But those are the people, in my opinion, that will really survive and thrive and come out the other end stronger. So the next time this happens, they're like, it's just another cycle. The market is secular. It'll come back around again. But how do you look at, I love that saying of control the controllables, because everyone I talk to is like, oh, poor me. No. Nothing has changed. Get up and do what you did before. Maybe you just make some tweaks and some changes, do more of it, and you'll get the same results. What does that mean to you on control the controllables? Because I thought it was the best. I watched the video and I was like, bingo, this is what everyone in this industry needs to hear.
Yeah, it's really every day reflecting on productive thinking of what can I still do. We get so caught up naturally in what we can't do. This was for me when I tore my Achilles in 2017 playing hoops. Like, this was a big deal for me, because what happens? You tear your Achilles. I got to do rehab. I can't work out. I can't do anything. I can't, all the excuses are there. However, I could still actually go to the gym and do shoulders and chest and pull-ups. Like, it's boring. I have to do the same thing. I can't really run, move, but I can at least do something. I can't spend an hour with my schedule today driving to the gym. Can I go in my garage for 15 minutes and do squats and burpees? Can't write an entire book today. Can I write 150 words? We are so caught up naturally in what's outside of our control, what we can't do, that we rarely ask ourselves, what's still in my control? What can I do today? Can't change the mortgage rates. What am I going to do? How am I going to work? How am I going to build my team? How am I going to communicate to my clients? How am I going to market to my prospects? What can I still do? And we find that the people that embrace that really have agency over their life. They have that victor mentality, right, that I am not going to be a victim to things outside of my control. There are things outside of my control that happen to me, but I still always control how I respond to it. And in these moments, how am I going to respond to it? And those are really the people that get through the storms. Because the other people that say, well, I just can't control anything, I can't change with it, they're just tossed back and forth because they see themselves as victims of situations instead of victors of their own life. And it's about that idea of taking agency over what you have. And regardless of what goes on in your world, your attitude, your actions, your effort, and where you choose to focus are 100% always up to you. And so for me, that's what that is. And 2 years ago, midst of COVID, I lost as a speaker tons of money. I mean, I was cutting checks back to clients like March 15th of events that were canceled. And it was so easy in that moment to say, man, this sucks. Everything's going down. I was just getting, a head start on speaking. We were really building steam. And then, oh, woe is me. And I caught myself starting to go in that negative loop. And I said, what's still in my control? How I show up, how I serve. Let's throw on video. Let's figure it out. And so I started shifting my focus off of what was out of my control, what was wrong, and said, what can I still do? And I ultimately believe choosing that is what made 2021 the year it was and tripled our business in 2022. Because I've seen other people that just took the victim mindset and just focused on what they couldn't control and they didn't take action on it. And so coming out of COVID and everything else, there were the people that say, this absolutely sucked. What's in my control? How I improve my mindset, how I build my habits, how I change my life so that if I'm ever in this situation again, I'm better prepared to be resilient and adaptable. And then there was a whole lot more people who said, man, this sucks. I can't wait till it's over. I hope it never happens again. And that's it. They didn't do anything. And so when something inevitably happens, mortgage rates increasing, if that was where we were in an industry, we suddenly can't adjust. We can't do anything because we haven't done anything ahead of time. We're just hoping everything works out in our favor without ourselves making changes or taking action. So right now, if you're in that spot and you're thinking, God, this sucks, I don't know what to do. What's still in your control? How you make outbound calls, how you work your clients, how you handle the customers you currently have, how you communicate, how you consistently show up and choose optimism, which is understanding the reality of the situation, but you're casting a vision. Here's what I'm going to do and how I'm going to make things better, versus positivity, which is sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich and ignoring the realities of the world, or negativity, which is like, oh, this is terrible. The sky is falling. There's nothing I can do. So that piece is really a competitive advantage. And especially when you think about it, because your mindset is yours to choose. You choose your mindset. You have natural tendencies, things you've been taught, habits you've built, but you choose that attitude and choose how you're going to see and where you're going to focus and how you're going to show up.
I got a great new shirt for you. Ready, Kenny? Lose the T. Don't let one lose the T and can't. Turn it to can.
That's right.
Lose the T.
There you go.
That's funny. You talk about people winning and wanting to win and not know how to win. That winning mindset, and you gave us a couple of nuggets there. If someone wanted to change that mindset and stop going in the right direction, turn their life around, what are some of the basic, maybe a couple fundamental steps they should take to start going in the right direction?
Yeah, the first is understanding and really accepting the fact that you hold the power to change your life by simply changing your next choice. And that it's not a quick overnight success. Like building a business is similar to building a mindset. Day one, you're not breaking the bank. It's not all out. Right. But day one, you can find a prospect. You can maybe make a transaction. You can add somebody to your email list. You can do something to make progress. So today, asking yourself simply a question, what's one thing I want to get better at? And what's one thing I could do today to get better at it? When I talk about a competition, the formula is pretty simple. It's knowing what your motivation is, what your why is. That's first and foremost, because you've got to know why you do what you do. But then from there, it's just saying, hey, what's my baseline? Where am I right now today? What do I struggle with that I want to get better at? What is that? You look for the opportunities to get better at it. Then you work at it. Now, here's the missing piece of that formula that most people forget. It's the review. It's the testing yourself and reviewing it. Because when you review, you look back and say, hey, I wanted to get better at separating this little device from life at home. I think we all struggle sometimes as high achievers that our phone's always connected to us. We get home from a long day of work. We're still answering emails. We're still answering text messages. So one of the things I do with some of my clients in sales is say, hey, listen, when you get home, put it on Do Not Disturb, set a timer for 20 minutes, put it in your office or drawer. If your goal is to be more present with your spouse and kids, that is your opportunity. Easiest way to do it, let's start here. And the first like week, you're getting those phantom vibrations in your pocket, thinking your phone's going. You swear in your head you're going to get that one call, that one email that, oh my gosh, everything's over. It's all blown up. And after a week, you realize you really didn't miss anything. And so maybe you extend that timer to 60 minutes or 2 hours. Some of my clients now have gotten to a point where they say, hey, I've told my team between the hours of 6 and 8, you can't get a hold of me. Like, I'm going to be with my family. I trust you to handle a situation, and I'll check email and text at 8 after one of my kids has gone to bed. But what they did was they saw where they were. They saw what they wanted to get better at. They worked at it. And then after a week or 2 weeks, they reviewed. Hey, I was really good at this. Man, I still struggle with this. What can I do to improve it? And so for us today, the simplest part is to just say one thing. What do I want to get better at? Is it choosing an optimistic attitude? Great. What would that look like? Well, let me write down what I'm thinking. Like our thoughts, we tend to think like we're a victim of our thoughts, but our thoughts are kind of like our emotions. We don't always control them. Our thoughts are like songs on the radio. And if you think about it, we all have things that pop in our head on a daily basis that we didn't think about, like random thoughts. I laughed on a stage the other day that I was at the airport and there was these kids screaming at the bar. And I thought, man, it would be terrible if somebody just gave them a little whiskey and shut them up for the day. Like you had that thought just popped up. I didn't act on it. I didn't respond to it. Like I just had it and thought that was a really weird thought to have. Like we don't control our thoughts. And so if you think about being in your car, driving down the road, you're driving down the road, you're listening to the radio. All of a sudden, say for me, Taylor Swift comes on. I'm like, I don't want to listen to Taylor Swift. I'm going to change that station. Sometimes we're driving down the road. Songs are just playing, but we're not paying any attention to them. We're driving, we're thinking about something else. And then sometimes we're driving down the road, Motley Crue, Kickstart My Heart comes on. Man, I'm rolling down the windows. I'm cranking it up. I'm jamming out. Like that is a song I want to hear. The thoughts are the same way. We're going to have thoughts that we think and we're like, I don't want to listen to that. I'm going to change the station. We have some thoughts that come and go we don't pay attention to. Then we have some thoughts that we're like, I need more of that. And so if you want to choose a more optimistic mindset, start paying attention to what you're thinking. Understanding that I don't control every thought, but I want to listen to that. I don't want to listen to that. I don't have to listen to that. And so that's a great way to do it is start small. Start with one thing. Your thoughts, your self-talk, what time you wake up in the morning, and just say, how do I want to get better at it? What's the one thing I could do to get better at it? Work at it for a week, evaluate yourself, and make little adjustments.
Yeah, it's great. You know, it's funny. I'm reading The Power of Now. And one of the exercises I was listening to in my car was try not to have a thought. See how long your brain will go with not having a thought. And I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Because I lasted to the minute he said, do it, the thought was there. I'm like, wait a second. It's impossible. I'm sure if I was a Zen master or maybe a yoga teacher, I don't know what I could be, that I could just be so, just have my mind at ease. Being that I'm constantly moving at 100 miles an hour and I'm constantly thinking of the next thing to do, it is so hard to disconnect that. To your point, I mean, I literally lasted, he said, okay, I want you to start now. And I went, done, over.
Yep.
But
you're right there.
I love the fact that, like building momentum, start with one thing and then just keep building off there. And you mentioned that and creating momentum. And I thought that was a great, you would just, it's everything you just said. It's start with that small step. And I think a lot of people have a problem with getting that small step. And it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And they give themselves the thought to go do it. Then the next morning, like, and I'm guilty as charged this morning. I went, get up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh, it'd be great. But my mind was racing all night about the difference between confidence and cockiness. And I'm like, oh, I could sleep for another 20 minutes. And that 20 minutes never happened. And it's really holding yourself accountable to get up and just do it and own it. And I love the fact that I went and checked out Competitive Nature. And, you break the chain, you're breaking the chain, the app. I'm going to download it. It's like, to your point, it's seeing it and holding yourself accountable. It's easy to do it in here, but that thought is going after you hold it yourself accountable in your brain, probably in 20 minutes. I think more people need the visual, like you talk about with, breaking the chain and having to hold yourself accountable and looking at it.
The other one I'll tell you about, there's two that are awesome as well. So everyday habit is a great one because it'll color code your habit streaks. And you can set it like mine every day. I've got 2 outbound sales calls or emails I got to make for speaking. And I don't have it on Saturdays and Sundays. So I have that kind of crossed off. But that one gives me a visual of where I see streaks. The one that's a game changer when you've got the right circle, and I use this with some of the executive coaches I coach, is habit share. Because I have them put 2 to 3 habits in there, a couple daily, a few weekly. And then when they do it, they have to check the box and it notifies me. And so I can message them and say, hey, saw you missed like 3 days in a row journaling. Talk to me about that. What can we do to get you on track? What are you thinking you need to journal versus what it actually looks like? That is what I see with the same executive. His team is implementing it. Like, what's a personal, what's a professional thing you got to do every day? And they're holding each other accountable, which builds their culture, which keeps them every day chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And so if you've got some people that can hold you accountable, use habit share. It's an easy one that you'll see a visual streak, but you'll also know somebody's looking forward to it.
Good stuff.
Ken, you got the best question of the day.
I know it. And he gave us so much already. It's tough to even ask, I tell you. So the podcast is really about value and how you define your value. How does Jake Thompson define his value, whether it being entrepreneur, keynote speaker, inspirational speaker? How do you define your value?
Yeah. So for me, it's, can I change the way you see yourself and your opportunity? And that's really, really where I try to position myself. Whether we're talking about a sales team, can I see how you perceive yourself, maybe your limitations or the opportunities in front of you to take better advantage of them, to somebody just starting their business? Can I see, help tighten your focus? But more than anything, I understand if I can teach you why it's important to compete every day and then equip you with ways to do it, you'll change your life. It's not immediate, but over time, if you have that consistency, we know it, consistency stacks. 1% every day is a game changer. And so when I talk to anybody, that's how I look at myself and my value just individually is, can I help you change how you see yourself and the opportunities in front of you?
That's awesome. And it's true. 1% better every day. It's something that he preaches every day. Yep. And every day I have to come in here and I have to remind myself, like, what can I do today that I didn't do yesterday to make myself a better leader, a better father, a better husband, better, whatever it is, better friend. It doesn't matter. And I think the world would be a lot better place if everyone worked on getting 1% better every day, so I get it. I really appreciate you being on our show today. I know that you have some great apps. If you want, and your website is awesome. I went there. If anyone hasn't checked out Jake's videos, I spent all morning watching them and all last night. So, and it will get you thinking. That, I think anything that you watch will get you thinking about how to be better for yourself and be a better person. It is priceless. And that's what it did. It really got me thinking about the difference between confidence, the different, why can't I hold myself accountable, to get up this morning? Like, I felt guilty. And that's what sometimes you need, is that thought, because it's been bothering me all day of like, tomorrow morning, it's not going to happen. Bullshit. When that thing goes off at 4:00, I'm getting out of bed. And before my wife and daughter even wake up, I'm going to be done working out.
So the funny thing about what you just said is the next question to ask yourself is what can I do to make it easier tomorrow? And then who can I ask to help me? So making it easier, putting your alarm across the room next to, say, your running shoes, your workout clothes. Because if that thing beeps more than once, your wife's going to kill you if it's that early in the morning. Like, I've learned that. You put it across, your butt's out of bed as soon as you hear it. Second thing is, hey, if I've got a friend that I'm meeting out for a run or they're up too, hey, I need your text by 6:30. Like, let me know you're up and moving. And so those two things of, instead of beating yourself up for the rest of the day, what if you simply started game planning how tomorrow you're already going to make it better? So now it's, okay, I learned the lesson today. I slept in. I didn't set myself up for success. How can I set myself up for success tomorrow and relieve the bandwidth mentally of continuing to kick myself for not getting up when I wanted to?
That's awesome. Well, do you want to share some of your websites? Yeah. Because I went down and I think you'd be crazy not to go to the competitor compete. Is it competitor?
Yeah. So competeeveryday.com. Yep. Is the main source of everything. You'll link out from there to our podcast, to our online community. We've got a free Facebook community and a small group coaching community as well. And then you'll get all the social media resources from there. And then myself, I just kind of hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram. My username's Jake Thompson Speaks. So pretty easy to find.
Yeah, and by the way, he has amazing shirts. I might be a frequent flyer after today. I got myself and Eddie some. I didn't want to be the only one wearing them. I know he's going to ask me where I got it from. But thanks again. If you want to learn more about everything we talked about today, you can always check out catch the replay at epmwholesale.com. You can check us out on LinkedIn at EPM Wholesale or Broker Success, on Facebook at EPM Wholesale and Broker Success as well. As always, Kenny, thank you so much for
thank you, and thank you, Jake.
You bet.
It was a great episode. We loved it, and definitely gonna get on and buy some t-shirts since Kevin didn't buy me, and he said him and Eddie. So I'm gonna jump on there and buy some t-shirts as well.
I was saving yours.
Appreciate y'all.
All right.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more, you can always email Kenny and I directly at kphillips@epm.net, Kevin at epm.net. Check out Jake's website. You guys, there's a lot to learn in this market right now. Stop being afraid of the things that you can't control. Control the things you can, and you will crush it. And I'm going to do a better job myself at dropping the T and start looking at what I can do versus what I can't do, and what I can control versus what I can't control. So thank you for that. And that is going to be out to the whole sales team here come Monday morning, is drop the T, man. I thank you for that.
It's your idea. You ran with it.
All right.